Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Holy Unapologetic. We are your hosts, Marqus and Ayce, coming to you today just with us. We're just going to have a little conversation today and see where it takes us. So how you doing today, Ayce? What's new?
I'm doing all right. I'm feeling a little under the weather, if I'm most honest. My family was in town
Mm,
last week, and it went as good as it possibly could have gone. Really, honestly, I
okay.
had really low expectations, but they were just out here to see me, to say that they love me. But my nervous system was on edge all week of like, what's going to come up? What are they going to say? How am I going to respond? Am I going to be
Yeah.
grounded and centered in my reactions, or am I going to like blow off the handle? Right?
Yeah.
And so after they left, my immune system just tanked. And so I'm not feeling the
Oh,
greatest today.
no.
But I'm super excited about the conversation we're going to have because I think it's going to be so good for our listeners to hear. So,
Yeah, for
yeah. How
sure.
are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's been very busy, been working a lot. I had a different situation from the family side of things. I got a very nasty Mother's Day message, unfortunately. Had basically just reached out being like, my fiance and I wish you well on Mother's Day. Had also added, please don't dead name me if you respond to this, because that's usually, if I get anything from her, it's like a punctuation is the dead name. It's like just that extra little jab.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, and I got a really terrible message back that really kind of came down to like, I don't have to follow the rules of the life that you've chosen. And what I thought was kind of funny about that, I was like, I don't even know if this is transphobic. It might just be like regular old homophobic, like just boring. This
mm,
is a choice kind of homophobia. So it was really, it's disappointing. It's heartbreaking. It's not a surprise, but
yeah,
'cause I don't talk to most of my family at this point. But
right.
it's hard. I mean, it's that kind of thing where setting boundaries is can feel so unsatisfying because we all want resolution to things, but it's like if any amount of interaction can be so damaging and painful and abusive at times, then you just have
Yeah,
to stop interacting with the people that, should support you the most. And something I've been thinking about a lot this week is like, you hear, of course, stories of parents kicking their kids out. And especially in LA, we have a lot of homeless teens because they are queer. And it's so heartbreaking. And I see stories online. Of course, I follow a lot of queer people, and they talk about like there's this one trans guy who was just like, if my family's seeing this, like I'm happy, like I'm living like,
mm,
and you have all this sympathy, but there's still. I realized that for myself, I was kind of like, but not my family. These are the people I grew up with, my best friends. I always wanted to
yeah,
come home from school to spend time with my family, and so it's really hard when the people that should love and support you the most don't, because it's like I
yeah.
spent my whole childhood in this like kind of anxiety of like, what if I can't straighten myself out enough and
Mhm,
perform perfectly enough, and then it's kind of like all your fears really came true because you're not accepted for who you are. So it's
yeah.
heartbreaking. It's definitely humbling to be like, just a different side of like, just never thought it could happen to me, but it does. It happens
Mhm,
to queer people all the time. And I've been driving for Lyft, and I just have people in the back of my car all the time that I'm grateful they feel very safe with me, because then they'll just start pouring their heart out about what their
yeah.
parents said. And was just hearing stories the other night of just terrible, terrible things, families spreading lies about their queer children. And
Mhm,
there's one new trans guy I followed who said that his mom was writing a book about what it's like to have lost your child, and all these Christians were gobbling it up. And I was like, I could so see my mom doing that. But
ah,
anyway, so there's been a lot of tough emotions, because it's like I'm trying so hard to heal the perfectionism thing, which is very much a religious
mhm,
side of things too, but also there's just this deep feeling of like, am I just deeply unlovable for who I am? That is really hard to
mhm.
shake when it's your own family and your own upbringing. But I have a wonderful, wonderful life, and I am surrounded by so many incredible people, and I've got great support systems, and I've got my great tribe that I feel like I've finally kind of come to find, and um, very deeply loved by my fiance, the aforementioned. So yeah, it's like when all the some things, sometimes they say like the storm comes to clear your path in a way. And so
Mhm.
it's a very strange time. It's been a lot of emotional highs and lows, and I've been able to kind of keep busy because I've needed to, and staying on top of finances and stuff. But I think there's part of me that's like, if I start slowing down, I'm gonna have to deal with the big sad, and that's gonna be tough. But yeah, there's still so much to be grateful for: my health and my life, and the people in it. So a lot of so focusing on the gratitude.
Yeah, both of us are killing it right now, right? Like our lives are actually like exploding and
Yeah.
blooming, I guess is the best word for it. Like there's so
Hmm.
much good that's going on. And it's
Yeah.
hard because I think both of us are living in that expansion and contraction of like, wow, there are some really great things that are really expanding our edges and we're able to express ourselves and be who we are. And we're having to contract and like protect ourselves either in society or with our families and setting boundaries. And yeah, it's a
It's a
difficult
lot.
space. The one thing that I realized, I guess, with my family is I've learned to set low expectations so that I'm not like just super sad after something that doesn't go great. Because I think what I've realized is they have a certain capacity and understanding for trans identities, LGBTQ, anything outside of them. And for me to expect them to go out and learn and to be like questioning and have curiosity around it, like it's not their life, it's my life. And
Yeah.
so I've learned to like just understand like, okay, my family has a certain amount of capacity. My personal family does still love me, even though they might say hurtful things, or they might do things that are hurtful to me, or they might not be showing up in the way that I would like them to show up. And so for me, it's that realization of like, okay, I need to live my life, and I need to, go on being who I am and expressing myself. And if I choose to interact with them, if I choose to include them in the journey, I can do the work and set boundaries. And if it's not working, I can say no. There were a couple of
Yeah.
moments last week when my family was in town. I was like, I don't have the capacity myself to show up in a way that I want to show up, and so I'm going to say
Hmm.
no to this invite. Thank you for thinking of me. It's just not the right time or the right space for me to do so.
Hmm.
And so I've been having to learn how to communicate with my family, like what is best for me in this moment, and standing up for who I am and what I need, and
Hmm.
realizing that what they need is on them, and what I need is on me, and having
Hmm.
that ownership for my own experience as I walk through what's best for me,
Hmm.
and not, I guess, shrinking, I guess is the best word, or
Sure.
collapsing who
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
am
Kind of almost
to meet what,
deflating to
yeah,
fit
to
into
meet
another
my
shape.
family.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Such an interesting journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that saying no is really one of the best forms of self-care I've found recently. Like, I love going for a
Mm-hmm.
massage or something like that, but saying no and not doing more is really tough because we talk a lot about this on the show of like deny yourself for everyone. There's the people-pleasing side of it. There's, as a pastor's
Yeah.
kid, it's just everyone else's comfort in the room matters before your own,
Mm-hmm.
to such an extreme. So the idea, like I just had an example the other night where I got to go to WrestleMania with one of my really good friends. And it was so much fun. And at the end of the night, they were going to go see like the Bellagio fountains. And, and that sounds amazing. And I'm not in Vegas all that often, but I decided to stay in because I just, it's a long day. I'm exhausted. I really just want to take a shower, get some extra sleep. And so there is still part of me that's like, oh, it would have been really cool to see that. But I think that was a good sign that I was like, you know what, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to stay in. I'm going to relax a little bit and get a little bit of extra sleep. Like it's really hard for me to do that kind of stuff because I'm so used to just saying
Yeah.
yes when you don't mean it, to do everything all
Right.
the time with everyone. And so I think that's been a bigger sign of my ability to take better care of myself because I'm just so used to like burnout cycles. Like I go, 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 don't think I'm enough, perfectionism, accomplish everything. And I get a lot done. I'm very productive. I've done a lot of amazing things in my life, but then I hit a point of burnout and I really crash out and then have to like rebuild.
Yeah.
And so to kind of avoid that burnout by just being a little bit nicer to myself, a little bit kinder to myself has been really huge. So I like that you mentioned that of just being able to set those boundaries and know
Yeah.
when to say no to just, so I think that's almost like that preventative self-care is almost more important than
Exactly.
recuperative in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah. Well, and learning how to be attuned to what's arising, right? And like
Hmm.
you've learned how to acknowledge the sensations that are going on in your body and to realize when you're under resourced. Because when you're
Hmm.
under resourced, that's when things go sideways. That's when you say things
Yeah.
that you're like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said this. Or you do
Hmm.
things where you're like, ooh, I have regret overdoing whatever it is. But when
Hmm.
you can actually pause and like listen to your body, listen to what's going on in your experience, and acknowledge that and be like, I need to say no for my own good in this moment to become more resourced. And maybe
Hmm.
later on I can show up and have fun with my friends and go do that event that you were talking about. But
Yeah.
right now in this space, it's not healthy for me. And acknowledging
Yeah.
that is huge. So great work,
I,
man.
Yeah, I love that idea of resource. I really like that because I just know how different I am on a good night's sleep for sure. I just saw
Yeah.
they were actually just talking. I think it was like Melissa McCarthy talking to someone. They found out that like the amount of sleep that a mom might lose just from being a parent can equate to like a blood alcohol content. Like it's like the same effect on your body
Wow.
in terms of being like basically unsafe to drive by losing that much sleep.
Yeah,
So
I guess
it's
that,
very important.
yeah, totally doesn't surprise me.
It makes sense. But I did want
Yeah.
to talk about the idea that there is so much pressure for trans people, I think, to suddenly all be activists. Like just by existing, it's a rebellious act, you know? And so I want to kind of talk about the social media side of that, but also just how it sometimes can feel like we're supposed to answer everybody's questions. Like I think like the last time I saw my dad, he was just asking like every trans question and it felt really kind of invasive. And I was like, well, this is still better than him not talking to me or being mad about it. But the idea
Yeah.
that we have to now educate everyone. And of course we, you know, we heard about this with BLM too. It was a good reminder of like, it's not black people's job to educate you on black history or anything like that. Like just because it's like, well, you know, help me catch up, you know?
Yeah.
But there is all that pressure. So let's hop into the social media side of things. You have gone rather viral lately. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've gone viral 4 times in the last, like, I don't even want to say 30 days. It's probably like 20 days. It's been a wild roller coaster. Um, One of the posts was transphobes, and I think I had 180,000 views in like 3 days.
Wow.
Um, and it's interesting because every time I log into that account and I look at what's going on, I'll have 100 plus notifications and it just blows up my newsfeed. I can't look at anything else because that's all that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I have to really like think: do I actually want to go into that account? Do I want to read the messages? Because there's no way to actually block those notifications in that social media
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah.
And so what I've chosen to do is I go in, I clear all the notifications. I don't read a single one of them.
Yeah.
And
There
then,
you go.
I have a whole bunch of messages in my inbox and I don't read those. I just let them sit. So I apologize to anybody who's actually reached out to me trying to get to me. But the reality is, all three of my social media platforms have gotten hit in the last month. And I have
Mm,
thousands of unread messages and things like that. So if you need to contact me, email me.
yeah. There you go.
um, but I think the hard part of this is like, we live in a society right now, and I look at the societal norms and where we're headed, and it's not towards liberation and freedom. It actually feels like it's more towards chaos and idiocracy, and
Hmm.
I don't know. There's probably a whole bunch of words for it, but
Yeah.
it's frustrating to me that I feel like as a society, we're falling into this trend of really unhealthy habits, and we're not really aware of what's going on around us. We're kind of just following down this path. And what
Mm,
I did is, when I went viral, I was like, I don't need to read these messages. I don't need to actually engage with them. I can
yeah.
choose to do something different to protect myself.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm an activist. Yes, I want to stand up for people who have similar journeys as we do. I want people to see me. I want to be vulnerable in that. And
Hmm.
it's not my responsibility to educate the transphobes that are out there, because I'm not going to change their mind.
Yeah.
The
Right.
only time that I'm going to change their mind is if they have a relationship with me, they know who I
Hmm.
am, and they say, wow, that's a person of character and integrity, and I want to get to know
Yeah.
them. And
Hmm.
that's actually happened. I have a couple friends that, prior to me coming out, were very against
Hmm.
anybody who was trans. And the moment I came out, I was scared shitless to have the
Mm,
conversation with them and say, hey, I'm going to medically transition.
hmm.
And I remember one of the guys, when I told him that, I was standing on his front yard and I was like, do I need to get ready to get back into my Jeep and leave?
Hmm.
Or are they going to acknowledge what I said and still have compassion and join me in this journey of uncovering what it looks like to know a trans person and love a trans person?
Yeah.
And the great thing for me is that person decided, like, hey, we have a relationship. I want to learn what's going on. They're still incredibly uncomfortable with who I am and how I live my life, but they love who I am. And so they're
Mm,
joining me in this journey. And it's
yeah.
messy. There are
Yeah.
things that they will say, there are things that they will post where I'm like, oh my goodness, like, do you see me?
Yeah.
Like, you say you love me and that hurts, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a really interesting space to be in a culture where there's so many transphobes who don't
Hmm.
understand we're just basic humans
Yeah.
trying to live our lives. You know, we're not doing anything to actually hurt anybody. We just
Yeah.
want to be able to express ourselves. And so that's
100%.
been a really interesting journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like it's not our entire identity. It's of course important to us and we'd
Yeah.
like it to be respected, but it's like I'd rather be known as a
Yeah.
writer than to be known as a trans person. Like, and I'm very proud of my
100%.
trans identity, but it's like I'd rather be known as a creative person or whatever else I'm
Yeah.
working on. So,
Well, and the core of you hasn't changed. You're
right. Oh
still a
yeah.
person of character and
Yeah.
integrity and love, compassion, empathy, all of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Only more
outside of me
so
has
because of this
changed. I
experience.
pre I present myself differently, but yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I just said like, yeah, I mean, it's only more so. I think I'm only able to be a more empathetic person. And especially because of the work I've done on myself, you just are able to love better. And I just think it helps. You could be a better person
Yeah,
the more you kind of deal with your own stuff. As we do a lot of projecting, you know? So I think a lot of times when there's conflict, it's because someone hasn't dealt with their own thing. So yeah, I only
hundred
like
percent,
myself
man.
more now. And it's not just because I have a
Yeah,
beard as much as I'm excited about that. But yeah, so much pressure to be activists, you know, and I see it a lot, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this because I feel like so many trans guys will just repost a lot of those hate comments over and over and over again, and
Mhm.
they'll put it up, and you know, a video of them at the gym where someone's saying something like, "Oh, you're still just a little girl with a beard" or something mean, and I'm like, in some ways maybe it's good because it lets people know how awful people are. Like I think sometimes that can
Mhm.
even wake me up. Like I think my fitness coach posted something once and I was like, that's so awful, I can't believe, like I'm gonna go, you know,
Yeah.
find that account and report him or whatever. Not that Instagram did anything about it, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because sometimes I'm just like, are you just giving them more of a platform for their hate?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to turn the question a little bit. And if I start to focus on those things, it makes me a more miserable person.
Yeah.
If I start to read those things and I start to post, like, hey, you know, so and so said this, like, it may make me feel better to like blast them and out them and
Yeah,
whatever for a
I get
moment.
that.
But the long term effects of that and actually choosing to live in that space of constantly reading those negative, you know, thoughts from other people, or
Hmm.
even putting yourself into those positions like hanging out with people. If I
Hmm.
mean, I have a choice. I can hang out with friends that support me and care about me and like try to find those people, find my
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
or I could choose to live in the life that I've always had where I have these people that don't really necessarily support who I am. And then
Yeah.
every interaction I have with them is going to be negative.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a choice. It's a voice and choice moment of
Hmm.
I'm going to choose to take myself out of this population and this
Yeah.
conversation and put myself in a place where I'm actually going to have a better thought process and lifestyle because of
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, there's a great Heath Ledger quote where he says, "You're not asking too much, you're asking the wrong people." And so, like, once you get to
Mm,
find that tribe, and I want to encourage everyone that might still be searching for your tribe, don't give up. It took me a really long time to find mine,
yeah.
but there are people that'll just love you exactly for who you are. Like, there are people like my coworkers, and we still just say "I love you" when we're
Mm,
leaving like the locker room, and it's so lovely and genuine and just wonderful, wonderful people that would never even care about the fact that I'm trans or
yeah.
um, uh, yeah, they've just been really, really amazing. I had a coworker that I thought he's kind of a higher level, so I thought he knew my dead name because I still sometimes have my old email and things. And
Right.
we were talking about, you know, his name gets a lot of nursery rhyme type jokes about it, and so I was going to commiserate with him because my dead name is Mary, and so I've heard Mary had a little lamb, Mary, Mary, quite contrary, and all this stuff, and so I was
Yeah.
going to commiserate, but then he's like, "No, I don't know. I've only ever known you as Mark. That's not my business to know." And he was really, really sweet about it, which is
Oh,
great. But
yeah.
yeah, I just I thought that was funny because I thought he did. So anyway, but it's been really great to start at
Yeah.
a job where people just know me as my true name, and I was just before I
Yeah.
started medically transitioning, so it's been really interesting too because
Mhm.
now I get gendered correctly all the time, and I'm used to getting misgendered all the time, and
Absolutely.
just at that job. But I have really liked it because I get to meet 1,000 strangers, and it's just kind of 1,000 fresh interactions each time. So it's been kind of a
Mhm.
cool place to do that. But yeah, now I get Sir all the time, and I'm like, you can see me, like, because I haven't changed. You know, it's like you're the frog in the boiling water. It's gradual for you. So,
Yeah.
why don't we segue to that? Because I think that's another really important thing about people that are open on social media is to talk about their transition, and it's so helpful. I'm
Hmm.
so grateful. I got kind of lucky because of like two of my best friends growing up. One of them had been on T, and one of them had gotten top surgery before I had transitioned. So I was able to be like, "Hey, I've got questions." So let's talk transition. Where do you want to jump in?
Yeah. Well, so I think there's an interesting parallel here. Both of us, when we decided to medically transition, we moved. I don't know exactly
Mm,
when you moved. I moved like right as I was medically transitioning. I
mm,
started T, I had top surgery, and then I moved because I was like, I can't like do this. People are not accepting who I am. It was just really awkward to have to explain
mhm.
myself every single time I met them why I did what I
Yeah.
did, and did I want to lie about it or did I want to tell the truth about it, and like
Mhm.
all of that was just really complex. When did you move in your journey?
Yeah, so I moved out to California in 2019. I was working at the job that I had when I was back in Vermont, and then
Yeah.
left that world behind in 2022. Didn't work for a couple of years because I had made a lot
Hmm.
of money and I just didn't have to. I didn't want to go right back into the same stressful corporate world. So then,
Yeah.
when I basically this job I have now is the first time I went back to a real like regular job, and that's when I was able to use my chosen name. So I kind of didn't. I kind of had this gap because I do think it would have been really hard to transition at a job where people had known me for 7 years. And there are a lot of wonderful,
Hmm.
wonderful people at that company and really good friends, but I did still get to kind of have a fresh start. So it's a little bit as if I moved,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
technically
Yeah.
had been in California for a few years by the time I
Okay.
started transitioning. But hey, I'm coming up on 2 weeks. I'll be at my year mark for being on T. So very exciting.
Yeah, man. That beard is coming in. I love it.
Yeah, the minoxidil, that's everything. So I feel like I'm like ahead of schedule from some other, I mean, you obviously shouldn't compare to anyone else's transition, but I do. I've got a lot coming in here, nice and fuzzy. And like, it's
Yeah.
funny though, it comes in so blonde. Like all of my like Aryan genes are really making themselves known, but it comes in super blonde and then I dye it. And then it's almost like I'm kind of revealing like there is a lot of hair there. So you can't see it as much here. And the mustache starts to get lighter and lighter, but it's really there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really coming in. It's very exciting. And it really
You might
helps
have
with
more.
the,
You have more neck hair than I have.
yeah, it's coming in. Minoxidil, man, it's helping twice a day.
So good.
But
Is it oral or topical?
topical. Yeah, so they've got
Okay.
like a foam and they've also got like a kind of an oil you can rub in.
Hmm.
So I love having like the whole like give myself a whole spot treatment there. But it's helpful though because I don't really bind a lot. So to still be able
Hmm.
to be seen as masculine is usually the beard has helped a lot with that. But I'm
Yeah.
really excited to get top surgery. I was really hoping to get it this summer because they usually say you know if you can be on T for 6 months to a year, then that's your
Yep.
body starts to kind of reshape in a little way that can be helpful for top surgery. My doctor, she's great. She's been trying to find me people in our system. I always forget the word for it in our,
Network.
insurance network. Thank you. Um,
Yep.
but twice now she sent me to people where I got them on the phone, tried to set up the appointment. And basically once they found out I was trans, they're like, oh, no, 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 doctor doesn't do that. Even though the entire site is about like breast reconstruction,
Hmm.
augmentation, so
Hmm.
that's been really heartbreaking. So I basically sent a message to my doctor being like, can you please double check before you send me a new referral and make sure that they work with trans people because this is really
Yeah.
heartbreaking to go through the whole process. You get the letter in the mail, you're so excited, you call them up,
Yeah.
you talk to the person at the front desk for like 20 minutes just to have this really awkward, not wanting to say they're not going to help trans people, even though the surgery is the same. And so it's like, sorry, I hate to say it, but it's like my mom had breast cancer, so it's like, do I have to like work that angle to basically say like this is preventative just to try to get some trans healthcare? Is it
Yeah.
because as I think you were
Yeah.
just posting something about this, like cis people get
Hmm.
uh, gender affirming care all the time. So
All the time.
she's like, it's been a hard search, but we're still searching. So hopefully I get something soon and I can set up the
Yeah.
appointment and the consultation because
Yeah.
I just that'll be a really huge piece for me. So I don't know if you want to talk about your experience with top surgery or if we want to
Yeah.
go down from there.
Absolutely.
We could do
Well,
that next.
we can talk about that after. I'll talk about my experience with top surgery first.
Perfect.
So before I had top surgery, my breasts were massive. There was no way I could bind. I was not going to hide them. It was just impossible. So I wore sports bras all the time, but that was about the best I could do. And around the same time that I came out and decided that I was going to medically transition, I found a lump in one of my breasts. And it was kind of concerning, but I was like, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna cut them off anyway. No big deal. But they still made me go through the entire process of,
Wow.
ultrasound, mammogram, MRI, biopsy, which that's no fun. I mean,
Mm.
none of the options are fun, but that one was pretty painful. And then I went and had top surgery, and they gave me the opportunity, like, do you want to have your tissues examined to see if there was anything there? Do you want to send it to someone to do some, like, what is it called when you donate your tissues
Okay.
for them to do scientific research on it? And so I
Sure.
was like, yeah, you can have them. They're no good to me. Like, we're not doing anything with it. Like, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So they first did the test, and they were like, yes, it was precancerous, so it's a good thing that you had it removed.
Wow.
And then they sent it off to research so they could do whatever they wanted to do. Because there's differences that happen when you're on T to your breast tissue. And I thought,
Hmm.
hey, that could be helpful if I send that in and they could actually do some research on that. That could be helpful for science. So I
Hmm.
donated towards that. But
Hmm.
one of the main things that I noticed actually is I work with, tons of trans clients doing either transmasculine and transfeminine surgeries. And what I've realized is there's a really high percentage of people that have to have revisions or they're
Mm.
totally botched and they're just totally messed up for the rest of their life. So I want to caution people if you're listening to this and you're like very excited to go get top surgery or bottom surgery or any type of gender friendly care, to really do your research before you actually have a procedure done. The amount of pain that happens after something's been done that you can't fix is usually pretty significant. There's
Mm.
probably going to be long term damage to your tissues, to the way that your body functions. And so it's really critical that you not only ask your doctor and advocate for yourself to be able to see pictures and really understand what's going on and what's actually happening and what the expected result is going to be, and also what the complications could be. Um, I went to a really great top surgeon, probably one of the top, I don't know, 10 in Michigan. That's where I had my top surgery done. I lost 50 pounds after I had surgery, and my chest still looks amazing.
Mm.
Um, and I see other people who have had surgery done as their first surgery, and it looks like they've just been cut up, and it's really disheartening to see that they're going to have 2, 3, 4 surgeries to fix what the
Yeah.
original surgeon did because they weren't trained well enough to actually do the plastic surgery piece of it.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between mastectomy that like a cishet woman has and
Hmm.
actually top surgery that a trans masculine person would have. And so
Yeah.
it's really critical to like find the right provider for you and
Hmm.
making sure that they're doing the actual surgery that you need to have done.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of different options that you can have for top surgery.
Hmm.
And so I would say, like, I just talked to a client 2 weeks ago. And they gave me a call and they were like, hey, I had top surgery tomorrow, but I'm really scared. I was like, okay, have you seen pictures? Do you know like how the doctor's going to do the procedure? And they talk to you about complications. And their answer to every single one of my questions was no. And I was like, you may want to cancel your surgery. And they're like, but I've been waiting for this for months. And I'm like, yes, and
Hmm.
you, I
This is
understand totally the dysphoria that's there, the discomfort that's there, that you want to have this done right here, right now, because you feel like your life is going to end if you don't. I get it. I was there. I get it. And if you go and have the surgery done by a non-qualified provider, you're going to have years of complications that you might not be able to fix.
right.
So it's better to slow down and do your research and really
Hmm.
wait for the provider that you need, man, to go and get something done too fast just because you're uncomfortable in your body. Which I don't
Yeah.
want to say that's a minimal thing. That's a big thing. I get
Yeah.
it. And do your research.
Yeah. Yeah, I just can't wait to like stand up straight because I think this is common for trans guys to kind of hunch over to cover up for the fact that they have a bigger chest. So like to stand up straight is really exciting. But yeah, to definitely do your research. I know there's like a trans bucket website where you can look based on doctors, you can
Mm-hmm.
see results of various surgeries. But even, have conversation. I know of another trans guy that said like, hey, so instead of just doing straight cuts across, can you curve
Yeah.
them upward because it'll follow the pec
Mm-hmm.
line better. And they'd never done that
Yep.
before, and it looks way better. Because for a lot of trans guys, especially if you're able to build up some good chest muscle,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that scar can eventually start to look like a shadow. So, and some guys get nice and hairy there, and that covers it up too. So jealous of
Totally.
that. But yeah, I'm getting hairier though. We'll see how it goes. But
Yeah,
but
man.
but yeah, I mean, to have that conversation, to do your research. They say not to go with the first person that you find, but it's hard. We're waiting all this
I
time,
get
and
it.
it's such a scary time to be trans and feel like nothing's possible sometimes, and you still want to be moving forward. And yeah,
Yeah.
I cannot wait for top surgery, but also don't want to rush it, and certainly would love
Mm-hmm.
to not have to do extra surgery. So, but it's
Yeah.
tough. When you wait a long time, you can start to get anxious, but definitely good to do
Totally understand.
your research. And it's, so part of me was excited when I was getting referred to all these like Beverly Hills cosmetic type plastic surgery places. I was like, oh, they're going to make it look good. But if they don't help trans people, then they don't help trans people. So that's important too. It's like to have a trans focus, but also, like you said, the plastic surgery side and not just straight,
Yeah.
getting rid of it. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's easy to see people on social media and be like, oh, they look amazing. They look so cis. Uh, but of course, there's plenty of
Yeah.
pride in those scars too. But also a lot of ways you can
Yeah.
treat them. And they say to make sure
Mm-hmm.
you get a lot of sunscreen on the skin and the scars, and
Yeah.
oils, ointments. So lots of ways that you can help with those scars too, from what I've heard.
There's a whole scar remediation procedure that you can go through that
Mm-hmm.
actually would make your scars way less visible. Some people get keloids, and it's kind of like the raised tissue, and you can actually work on that through massage and using castor oil. There's a whole lot of things that you can do to actually make the scars less visible. Another
Mm-hmm.
piece is the dog ears piece.
Yeah.
Um, Asking your surgeon, like, how do they handle if dog ears happen? They happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that, like, if you're a bigger candidate, you have a bigger
Mm-hmm.
chest, you have a big, larger body weight, those types of things. They can cut further back, and so you have a larger scar, but you have less of a chance to get dog ears. That's what I chose
That's
to do.
basically for people that don't know, like, yeah, skin kind of sticking out from the side here. Yeah.
Yeah, extra skin. Yep.
Yeah.
I chose going into it because I was heavier at the time, and I had massive breasts. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just go back as far as you need to go. I don't want to go
Yeah.
through another surgery. I don't want to have a revision.
Yeah.
Mine looks great. I mean, it does go back pretty far, but my arms pretty much hide it. Unless it's
Mm-hmm.
been something.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then, of course, there are trans guys that get tattoos right along the line. I've seen it multiple times where
yeah,
it's like they'll do like a barbed wire thing, which looks so cool. So,
yeah,
teach their own.
yeah. Well, and the cool thing is you can also choose to have your nipples or not. And so if
Yeah.
you're more non-binary and you don't want to have your nipples, that's totally cool. Or you can get them tatted
Mm-hmm.
on later on. So
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of options when it comes to that.
Yeah, because sensation can certainly change after something like that. There are also surgeries that
Mm-hmm.
aren't the kind of classic cut across scars, but more by the areola, where they can if you have a much smaller chest, so I wouldn't really be able to do that one.
Yep.
They can just kind of take the fat out from there. But one thing I've heard from that is that while that's a less invasive surgery, if you gain weight after the surgery, it can sometimes kind of build up right there. So it's starting to look
Mm-hmm.
like a chest, breasts again. So yeah, do your research, and hopefully, best of luck to everyone that's trying to find a good surgeon for it. And there are a lot of good people out there trying to help trans people. So with that, do you want to transition downstairs?
Yeah, you got something to talk about, I think.
Let's talk about it. So, bottom surgery for trans guys is definitely something that a lot of people consider. And it's funny, my coach had warned me about this too. It's like, once you get on T, all you can think about is top surgery. Once you get on top surgery, all you can think about is bottom surgery. So it's like, be ready for that. Don't feel, because of course you can be a valid trans person with no actual surgeries or medical transition. But a lot of guys think about bottom surgery. So, a lot of different options for that. One thing that is really cool about being on T is that you get enlargement in that area. So basically your clitoris will essentially start to transition into a tiny penis because they, even in the womb, there are a lot of the same parts there. And so that enlargement there is basically the equivalent to the head of a penis, except we get 8,000 nerve endings. So sorry, not sorry. But there are things you can do, so T makes it grow. You can pump. So I've been experimenting with a bit of that. Though I do want to buy a new one because mine's not that great, but that can help with the enlargement there, kind of stretching out that area. Because for those that don't know, the clitoris is this incredible interior structure as well. So it has this whole different shape in there. A lot of amazing parts to it that can also get engorged the way that a penis can. So you're basically just kind of expanding that anatomy there. So there are guys that can definitely get hard. There are guys that can get erect. There are guys that can have penetrative sex just with the anatomy that they have. and the growth that they've
Mhm.
had on T or with pumping. So that
Yeah.
is all with no surgery. But for those that do want surgery, there are different stages of bottom surgery. I don't know exactly which one's which, but usually it's something to the effect of kind of getting more of a separation out there. You can have a surgery so that you can stand to pee, so they can kind of reroute your urethra. Another surgery is creating kind of basically a phallus. So usually trans guys will either take a donation from their arm right here or from their thigh. And they sometimes will try to get a nerve there so that they can create a penis. And then that is something that they can then use like a regular penis. And sensation varies a lot. Some guys don't have a lot of sensation, some do. And then the last surgery is usually has to do with getting an erection. So you can get a pump inserted inside of the penis that you can basically pump up, or you can get a rod, which keeps you kind of like basically semi-hard all the time, but you can use that for penetrative sex. So that would be my summary of bottom surgery. Is there anything you want to add to there, or do you want to just
Man,
jump into your thoughts
you
on
did a
it?
great job. Yeah.
Give people some trans science.
Yeah, so there's something called the simple release, which is what you talked about, which is basically where they just release the clitoris from the body so you can actually make it more erect. You can
Mm,
choose to do a vaginectomy, which is where you close
right.
the vaginal canal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can choose to do meta, which is the smaller end of the spectrum. So they use the materials that you have that have naturally grown, they release it. They can choose to do urethral lengthening,
Mm-hmm.
which is where you can stand to pee. And then you can do Fallon, which has usually 3 or 4 stages
Mm-hmm.
of the surgery, which is what you talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have made a decision for now as to what I want to do with bottom surgery, based on the fact that currently the options that are out there and what I personally desire, it's really high risk and
Mm-hmm.
it comes with a lot of complications. And I have great pleasure with what I have right now. And so I've chosen simply to have the hysterectomy.
Mm-hmm.
So I no longer, bleed. And then I, do the pumping and things like that. So I can enjoy having more blood flow through that area. It's really an erogenous thing for me, more for pleasure and also for gender affirmation. Um, but when I look at the other options, for me personally, they're just not right because of the complications that are out there and the amount of pain and all of that. It's just, for me, it's not the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are on
Yeah,
bottom
sure.
surgery.
I did want to ask though, can you also talk a little bit about the hysterectomy too? Because there are different types of
Mm-hmm.
hysterectomies you can get. And I
Yeah.
remember you talking about this on another podcast, but I'd love for just a quick summary of that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so with hysterectomies, we have a lot of options. You can get a radical hysterectomy, a total hysterectomy. You can leave some things, you can take out everything, basically. And so when I went to go have my hysterectomy done, I consulted with 4 professionals throughout the United States that are very well educated and up to date on what's going on in the medical world and what's best for us. And it took me days to do this research because it's not readily out there for trans people. There's not a lot of research on the effects of taking out your ovaries or leaving your ovaries and like the long term implications of that. And so I had to do like a deep dive into like actual medical research and documents and like actually read through them myself with my other medical professionals helping me like understand the terminology of it. What I realized for me was if I left my ovaries in, it wouldn't send my body into menopause immediately after surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And what it would do is it would give me a few more years to allow my body to naturally go through that process
Mm-hmm.
of aging. And your body needs hormones. You either need
Mm-hmm.
estrogen or you need testosterone to live. It's a basic like human. You need this. And so as I was looking into why I might want to keep my ovaries or not, I was thinking about the implications of not having any estrogen in my body at all.
Mm-hmm.
They say that there might be some contraindications towards your brain health and also your bone health if you take your ovaries out.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, in talking to my providers and doing what's right for me, I didn't really want to deal with osteoporosis and dementia and things like that in my brain health earlier in my life. Like, I would like to prolong the opportunity to not have that. I mean, it might happen at some point, but if I could do something right now to delay that coming into my lifestyle, that's what I'm going to choose to do. So I chose to
Mm-hmm.
actually keep my ovaries, but take everything else out.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have to take their ovaries out because there's a cancer, ovarian cancer, that spreads very quickly. If it runs in your family, it's probably better for you to have them taken out. So, really, finding somebody who's actually done the research or has the ability to help you find that information is really helpful for you to be able to determine what's best for you. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was just to do the partial hysterectomy, leave my ovaries in, and I don't have any effects, obviously, of the estrogen going through my body. I look very masculine. My voice still dropped. I still have bottom growth. One piece to note is if you're on T and you still have a vaginal canal, you're going to probably want to get on something called estradiol. Because
Mm-hmm.
what happens is, as we start to lean more masculine with our hormones and the amount of T that's in our body, um, our vaginal tissue needs to have estrogen to thrive. And so, what estradiol does is it actually gives you the chemicals, the hormones that you need to actually be able to lubricate, and your tissue is not going to tear nearly as quickly. It's going to expand as it's supposed to as arousal happens and things like that. Estradiol does not affect anything outside of the vaginal area. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to worry that it's going to slow down the effects of any of the masculinization that you may want to have happen. But it's going to give you a much more pleasurable sex life if you choose to use your front pole for any type of pleasurable activities.
Mm-hmm.
It also is going to lessen your chance for bleeding of tissue just breaking and spreading apart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what can happen is it gets really dry. It can't lubricate. It loses that ability to expand. The tissue isn't really as like lumptious.
Mm-hmm.
What's the word? Plump? I don't know what the right word is.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
basically, what will happen is anything inserted or any touch is going to become painful if you don't take care of it, sooner rather than later. And the reality
Mm-hmm.
is if you have atrophy and you never take care of it, it's only going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take care of it at the very beginning, you start getting on estradiol or some other estrogen of some sort, um, you slow down the process of atrophy becoming a bigger and bigger problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point to make. And there are trans guys that suffer from that, a lot of pain and cramping in that area, especially
Mm-hmm.
with sex. So I'd recommend Aiden Dowling has a really great video about it for those that might be going through it. But I've been on a really, really painful journey with that part of my body in particular, having been raped end of 2022 and in beginning of 2023. I got an IUD put in, which is excruciating. That messed with all my hormones. Eventually got it removed about a year later, and that was even more excruciating. Then I was on like birth control because my biggest thing was just not wanting to bleed anymore. I didn't want to have my period.
Right.
Bleeding from the place that had been violated just made me want to kill myself every time
Mm-hmm.
that I had a period. And so then it's like I got on like birth control, not because I was planning to have sex with men, but because of that part of it. And then I bled for 2 weeks and it was even worse. So the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I'm grateful for there is that I was like, man, I went into the doctor and got estrogen the same day. What I actually want is to be on T. So maybe I should just actually have the courage to move forward on that step because it was so easy the other way and so applauded, and it's so cis the other way and approved or okay. But anyway, so I'm grateful for that push. But it's been a really painful journey because I basically can't have any pleasure in that part of my body. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel discomfort or nothing. And then now there's that added part of it where sometimes after I orgasm, I do feel like a really intense cramping in like this whole area. So it's not every time, but that's something that Aiden talked about in his video that caused him to then want to get his hysterectomy because of that.
Yeah.
And so it was something I was desperate for back when I was still bleeding to get the
Mm-hmm.
hysterectomy. But thankfully, being on T and being steady on it, I haven't had my period since, which is incredible. That was such a big thing for me because
Mm-hmm.
it causes dysphoria on a good day, but add on top of it the
Absolutely.
trauma and
Yeah.
the pain and the emotional side of it all I just felt like I was crashing out like every month of my life, and it was incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
So so grateful for T for not having my period anymore. I do occasionally still have that cramping, but this was something I had been talking to you about. We had basically a coaching session about bottom, whether or not to get bottom surgery, and you had recommended the estradiol. So I definitely want to look into that, see if that helps, because I still do have I don't think I'm someone that would want to have the surgery that kind of closes you up there. I do still in my brain have the desire to use that part of my anatomy, but it just
Yeah.
hasn't been in any way pleasurable for me with everything I've experienced. So
Yeah.
if there's a way to have some healing there, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So that kind of did delay the hysterectomy side of things for me, at least. That once I had stopped my period was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And one piece to note in some of the symptoms that you're experiencing, some of the pain that you're experiencing, a lot of it has to do with trauma being stored in the body
Mm-hmm.
and how our nervous system is
I bet it's about
actually able
90%
to.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And so doing work with someone like me who's a coach, a somatic sexologist who understands the nervous system, how trauma is stored, how to release that and actually move that energy out. I found for myself, I was a sex abuse survivor as well at the age of 7. Um, in doing this work on my own body and finding safety in that space, I was allowed to let go of some of those things that my body was storing. I learned how to let that go and actually
Mm-hmm.
be able to find pleasure in that space. So for anybody who's listening and they're like, man, I really relate to Marqus and the story there. Like, there is hope. You're not broken. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your body is designed to be able to have pleasure and allow it to move through that. What's happening is there's a break in that. And all we
Mm-hmm.
need to do is learn how to rewire our nervous system and get ourselves into a space of safety where we can actually begin to experience pleasure. Now, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't an easy road. It's not something like, oh, yeah, hey, take this pill and you're going to be fixed and you're never going to
Kind
have
of
this
figured it
issue
all
again,
out.
right? Yeah, I mean, I've been on a 4-year journey of uncovering this for myself. And so just know that, like, it may feel hopeless, you may feel broken, you may
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's no way to solve this. But the reality is you're not broken. Your body
Mm-hmm.
is naturally designed to do this. We just have to
Mm-hmm.
bring you back home into safety.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, and it's compounded to so many different things, especially for
Yeah.
AFAB people. And this is something
Mm-hmm.
I'm really passionate about. I've done a ton of research on and will continue to do. But, I think of the classic example of like with sex ed, boys get to learn about erections, girls learn about their period.
Yeah.
There are people that I was just starting a new documentary about like clitoracy and how much women aren't taught about the clitoris. And it was like this woman who is like this elderly woman who had 5 kids was like, I don't think I've ever had an orgasm, like,
Yeah.
or didn't know what the clitoris was, or it's just so heartbreaking. And it was only ever like actually mapped out like 20 years ago, the actual internal
Yeah.
structure. And it's like, so I could go off on so many different directions because I'm very passionate about this. But like what you talked about, I'm not broken. I saw a stand-up special, Nikki Glaser, super funny. She had in this special Bangin, she had a joke about how like telling guys like this doesn't feel good. This does not feel good if you finger a girl like this. And I literally was watching that and I was like, I've had a guy do that to me and say, well, it should. Like when I was like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good. This is uncomfortable. And like, it was my fault. Like, it was just like,
Yeah.
it should feel good. Like, so then, yeah, I'm broken. I must be broken. And already with my own childhood trauma, it was just like, I'm already dirty. I'm already sinful. I'm already broken. It's like you can make jokes about male anatomy, but the fact that we don't even talk about female anatomy has this like unmentionable shame thing around it. And so, and this is actually this is something I talked to Ayce about when we were first chatting. I basically sent him a cold email being like, "Loved you on the podcast. Any chance you want to talk?" And something I kind of gave him my whole rant about female pleasure. But one of the things I talked about was in the movie Gone Girl. He has this line about how like, oh, she's also got this world class vagina. 2015 film, first time in my life I had ever had any positive mention of female anatomy that I'd ever heard in my entire life, ever. Like talked about like, oh, he's got a big dick. You hear that all the time. But the idea
Mm-hmm.
of celebrating a woman's anatomy was the first time in my life that I had heard that in the media. And so, yeah, I'm very passionate about all this. But I thought that you talked about the idea of broken. Like, no, you're not broken. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And so, but to encourage women to experience their own pleasure and find what they like, and then have the courage to talk about it, because this is actually something I was just talking about with one of my Lyft people too, is like with the, because my rider was talking about how they only had abstinence, only, super religious education where he grew up in a small town. Um, and I was basically like, I wish I could have had conversations with my mom about consent, like, because even in relationships that I had that were pre-sex, I still felt pressure to do things I didn't want to do. And so even though I'm still a virgin at that point, I wish I could have had those kind of conversations to feel. But as women, you're raised to be people pleasers and to say yes to everything and make everyone else comfortable. And
Mhm.
that definitely applies to things that are so sensitive, like sexual relationships. And so to encourage women to find their own pleasure, and of course anybody, but for this society topic, is like this act of something. The documentary I was just watching was like, that is like an act of rebellion, and it's an enormous source of power to have someone connected to their own sexuality and know that that's their absolute power source. So there are a lot of great books on it. I'll link some down below. One of them is Pussy. It's a really good book. She talks about it, how like this is your like intuition, this is your God, this is our power, this is
Yeah,
like, we need to trust
yeah.
it. We've been taught to not trust it. We need to come back to the great power. So I'll link some good books
Yeah.
down below. But yeah, you're not
Come as
broken.
you
You have a
are.
right to pleasure. Yeah, come as you are. Yep, that's another really
Come
good
as you
one.
are is another really great book.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And of course, Sex, Love, and Goop is a great one to explore a lot of different types of
absolutely.
relationships. But it's like it's pleasure is our divine right, and it's been absolutely attempted to be taken from us and shamed
Hmm.
out of us. And so to find that wherever you're at in your life is something, yeah, divine right. I like that. So
Yep.
um, very important thing. So yeah, so we got talking about bottom surgery. I really, really wanted it, but now I think it is a healthy stage to be at, to try to fall in love with myself exactly as I am, get to know myself exactly as I am, and in a transitionary stage, which can be a little scary sometimes, but exciting.
Yeah.
I think is going to be a good first step to not rush into it. Because yeah, there are different things you could do too. There are also, for those that don't know, there are a lot of different ways that people can pack. So that is
Mhm.
basically a prosthetic penis that you can have in your pants to look like you have a bulge. There are also ones that have a lot of different functions. There are ones that you can use to actually stand at a urinal. So I've done that before. That's felt very empowering as someone who will be like driving 10 hours a day and like out in the middle of nowhere. It's like if I find the men's room and I can actually use the urinal, feel it makes things a lot easier. But there are also ones that you can use for, of course, sex play as well. So
Mm.
for those that might not want to go through a surgery, you can still have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, here's the reality: trans people, trans men, we're the best of both worlds because we have a drawer full of options.
Yep, you can pick whatever size you want. Got all the toys. Yeah, yeah. Oh man. The only other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that I kind of forget sometimes that you really are as kind of new in your transition as you are. I mean, I so look
Mhm.
up to you and you're such an awesome, awesome man. And I just like, so thinking that just a few years ago, where would you and I have been like 5 years ago, basically? I was kind of laughing to think like, if we had met at some kind of Christian event, how do you think we would have vibed, or like what would have been? I don't know. It's weird to think about.
Yeah, it's so funny to think about. 5 years ago, I was an executive leader in a worldwide Christian organization. And so, like, I was meeting with people to talk about faith, they talk about really deep theological concepts, and now I'm talking about sex.
Yeah, love it. I'm talking about everyone should read Pussy. Oh my gosh,
We did
yeah.
a
I
complete
am,
180 in our lives.
yeah, I still wonder if there would have been some kind of like connection there. I think,
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure right off the
yeah,
bat, we probably would have like, okay, this person's cool.
something,
Yeah,
something about that.
yeah,
So, but
absolutely.
it's so wonderful, it's like I got to meet so much of my tribe, like I said, with this new job as myself, and I got to meet my incredible fiance as myself. And so for her, it's weird to see any pictures of me pre-transition, even though that's so much more of my life that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Because she's just like even today, she had to use my old email for something, and she was like, I don't want to, like basically trying to use my dead name, and I was like, well, it goes to that bank account, sorry. um, so it's really nice to be, and there's also something about that too, because she identifies as straight. So she was like, if I wasn't dating you, I wouldn't go date women. Like I'm not attracted to women. And so it's like I had to have the courage to step into my whole self to attract this person that I love so dearly,
Yeah.
and loves me so much. So there's something really cool about that, of like, they say like, be the person you want to be in the relationship instead of
Mhm.
focusing on finding the person. And it's quite literal in this case. So yeah, crazy to think how different things were.
How often do we actually stay in our misery because we don't know of anything else? But then we might be
Yeah.
missing what could actually be coming to us because we weren't willing to make the change. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a cool way to see your journey and how you were like, okay, I want a long term relationship and this is what I want it to look like. And I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
presenting masculine. I'm going to make the medical transition. And as you started making those steps in your life and you were really intentional about those, she landed in your lap. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is the relationship that I've always wanted. But it wasn't until
Yeah.
you were ready for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So do coaching with Ace because that really helps too. We'll link it down below, of course. But I'm super excited. This has been a wonderful conversation, Ace. Thank you so much for your time. We've got a really cool guest coming up, multiple great guests, but one in particular that is an absolute pro when it comes to religious trauma and those types of things. So we're gonna have some real juicy conversations coming up. So yeah, any last things you wanted to throw out there, Ace, as we wrap up?
Live your life in pleasure. Like, that is it right there, right?
That is
This has
it, my
been such a
man.
fun conversation about uncovering, all the pain that we've experienced and how we've moved past that or moved through it. There's still going to be painful, times in our life, but we've actually learned how to enjoy ourselves, express ourselves, and live our lives in pleasure. So it's super fun to
Yeah.
live this life.
Yeah. I that's one of my biggest like passions is really just this idea of total ownership and to own yourself, take
Mm-hmm.
care of yourself, take responsibility for yourself and love yourself and be independent. And then from there, it's like kindness and then do something creative. Never stop learning. Those are my core values right there.
Mm.
So, thank you so much for your time, Ace. Thank you for everyone for
Yeah.
listening, and we'll catch up with you all on the next episode of Holy Unapologetic.